think I am a little disappointed that you can see these stripes. This episode is very yarn heavy, so I hope you like looking at new yarn. Hi everyone, welcome back to my channel, Knee Knits. My name is Amy, and here I talk about all things knitting. Today's podcast episode number 22, and I'll be sharing everything that I've been knitting recently. I have a finished object to talk about, I have some whips on the needles, I have a lot of yarn to share, and I have in general a lot to share, so I think this is going to be a very exciting, jam-packed episode. As you can see, I am back home in Massachusetts. I'm very happy to be back home. Traveling is always very exciting, but it's always very exhausting. And, being in an unfamiliar place, you never feel quite settled living out of a suitcase. So I'm glad to be back. I'm glad to be filming with all of my equipment. I got my microphone back, so the audio should be top-notch today, and I hope you're ready for a lot of knitting talk. Today I am wearing my Oslo sweater, which I knit before I started podcasting, so I don't have a lot of content on it, but it is one of my favorite sweaters. It's a pattern by Petite Knit, and I knit this with the suggested yarn, which is the Sewrella Tibet yarn, which is a chainette, yak, and merino blend yarn. The color is number 17. I don't know if there's a color name for it, but it's number 17. And then I held that together with Knitting for Olive soft silk mohair in the color Rust. And I call it my pumpkin spice sweater because it's just the most perfect autumnal pumpkin spice color. Not normally a color I gravitate towards wearing or knitting recently, but I like to pull it out in the fall because it's very seasonal. So yeah, my Oslo sweater. It's been a while since I filmed the last podcast. I think it's been a full 3 weeks when I normally film every 2 weeks. So there's a lot of content to cover. I'm going to talk about my finished zipper sweater first. And here it is. So the last podcast I filmed, episode number 21, I had finished knitting the whole zipper sweater, but I had not finished the sewing of the zipper in it yet. So I have since attached the zipper, and you can see now it is fully complete, considered a finished object. I've actually worn it a lot since finishing it. So yeah, let's talk about the basics. This is the zipper sweater pattern by Petite Knit. The yarn that I used was Folklore Peruvian Highland wool in the color charcoal, and I held that together with Folklore Tilia, which is their silk mohair in the color black. I knit the size small, which is the suggested size for me based on the pattern and the Positive Ease recommendation of 13 inches. And I knit the whole body on 5.5 millimeter needles. So it is an Aran weight knit and knit up super quickly for me, which I really loved. So the zipper I bought from the Petite Knit website, had it shipped here, and I really like the zipper. I'm trying to think if there's any other basics to cover before I get into the details. That might be it. So first I'll talk about sewing in the zipper, and then I'll cover, the finished object specs, like how much yarn I use, the finished dimensions, the fit, and how I like the finished piece. So for the zipper, I have made the zipper sweater once before, so this was not my very first time sewing in a zipper, but it was my very second time. So I sewed this in by hand. I just had a sewing needle and black thread. I followed the Petite Knit video that is linked on her website. It goes to YouTube, and I don't think it's actually Petite Knit herself who is recording the video, but there is a nice tutorial video that is in Danish, but you can put on English subtitles, which is what I did. It was very straightforward to follow. I didn't actually film my process of attaching the zipper as a tutorial. Some of you had asked, and I just didn't feel comfortable filming a tutorial with something that I was not 100% confident in, so I was still learning how to do it as I went, and making sure that I was just following their instructions. And if I were to film a tutorial video, it honestly would be exactly the same as the Petite Knit video. So if you are looking for video help with the zipper sweater, I'll just link below Petite Knit's video for you all. Hand sewing it was not as bad as I thought it would be. I did block the sweater beforehand. You basically start by pinning in the zipper unzipped into the knit fabric, and then you slowly sew from top to bottom. And then you do the other side. And honestly, the trickiest part was probably the very bottom part of the zipper. right here where it meets, and you have to sort of tuck it into the little pocket that was formed with the zipper facing, because the tutorial video didn't really cover the details of it. They just kind of said, you know, continue sewing like you did the top part and then just continue until the end. So that sort of was the only spot that I probably would appreciated some more instructions in the video for. But besides that, I basically just did a running stitch, you know, all the way down, and then I did the running stitch horizontally across the bottom here, and then went all the way, well, I didn't go back up because I then went from the top down on the other side and then just met in the middle here. I think because I am knitting this in black and I used black thread, you know, I have some more grace than if you did this with a lighter color, because you can't really see much of the details if there are mistakes or if it looks bad. You can't really see it, which is nice. But up close, I think it looks pretty good. I'll show you the very bottom, which, like I said before, was the most difficult part to sew in, and you can see it's not the neatest, it's not perfect, but I never expected perfect. I think it's good enough. So you can kind of see there that I kind of twisted the stitches a little bit. They kind of pull in a little where I sewed in the thread. I guess I was just pulling on the fabric and not the neatest way. So at the bottom, it looks a little bit messy, but nothing that concerns me and nothing that I wanted to undo and then redo. I think when you're sewing in the zipper, the most important thing to keep in mind is not pulling the knit fabric too close to the metal teeth or the plastic teeth or the teeth of your zipper in general. I think it's tempting because you want to hide as much of the zipper fabric as possible, but if you get too close, especially if you're knitting with a mohair, it can get caught. And they do mention that in the tutorial video. I did find at one point that my zipper was getting caught, I think right at the join between the ribbing and the stockinette. There was a part of the fabric that I just sewed too close to the teeth and was actually getting caught. So I did have to undo a few stitches and go back and redo it. So it's important as you're sewing in the zipper to continually test your zipper and make sure you're not getting caught anywhere. It looks like the knitting is really close to the zipper, but you can see that my actual sewed point is further in. So that kind of gives a good visual of where I sewed versus where it actually lays. And when I'm sewing, I just made sure to stay within the same column of stitches to keep everything consistent. And actually right here is probably a better spot to show you the bottom where my knit stitches are a little bit skewed. You can kind of see right there where my stitches are from my sewing thread. But other than that, I think in general, it turned out pretty good. So I think that's everything I can share about the zipper attachment. I would be curious how it would go with a sewing machine. Obviously, it would save you an immense amount of time. I think in total, I took like an hour and a half, maybe closer to 2 hours, from like sitting down, gathering materials, to cleaning up, to do the whole zipper thing, which is kind of a long time. So if you had a sewing machine, you could easily just go zoop, zoop, and you're done, and probably be more secure than the hand stitches, but I feel like these stitches are pretty secure. I did go back over the stitches twice, so 2 times. I went down, and then I went back up, and then down, and then I went back up. Now I'm remembering. It's been a long time since I did this, so apologies that I might be forgetting some stuff. But now we'll just talk about the zipper sweater project as a whole. So I think I mentioned earlier that I knit a size small, which has a suggested ease of 13 inches, a positive ease, so it's very oversized. Now I had a lot of problems with yarn chicken that I talked about in the previous episode, and I ended up finishing this without needing to buy new yarn. I was trying not to buy new yarn, so I strategically knit things so I wouldn't run out. I think if I had knit to pattern or knit to the length I wanted, I might have run out. I bought 10 balls of the Folklore Peruvian wool, which was the suggested amount for my size sweater, and it's the same exact suggested yarn in the pattern as well. And I ended up using 9.9 balls of yarn. Now that I've come home, I was able to weigh my leftovers, and I only had 1/10 of a ball left of the Peruvian wool, which is only about 10 meters. So really close. I didn't have yarn chicken issues with the mohair. I bought 5 balls of the Tilia and used about 4.5. So I think I had plenty left over if I needed to make it longer. And I did mod this a lot. I'm pretty short, so I shortened the body and I shortened the sleeves. I shortened the body knitting by about 1/2 inch, which is I think about 1 centimeter. And then I also shortened the body ribbing by a whole inch, which is 2.5 centimeters. And then I also shortened the sleeves the most. I shortened the sleeves by 3 whole inches, which is about 7 centimeters, because the sleeves were already really long by the time I started the ribbing. And the pattern calls for a really long portion of ribbing at the sleeves, about 5.5 inches. And by the time I had started the ribbing, this sleeve was already past my wrist. So I did just 2.5 inches of ribbing and then bound off. And the sleeve is pretty long. I think at first when I tried it on, I was worried they were too long, like they were all the way over my hand. But as I wore it, they shortened a little bit, and now it's kind of like that comfy, cozy, oversized sleeve fit. So I'm not going to go back and shorten them, but just note that I shortened all of those parts of the sweater and still only had 10 meters left of yarn. So if you're knitting the size small to pattern, you will definitely need more yarn than what is suggested. I have no idea if that yardage estimate or the underestimate applies to the other sizes. I would assume if they use the same method that other sizes might also underestimate, so just be cautious if you're knitting this pattern to just get more yarn than what is suggested. Overall, this zipper sweater has a super cozy fit. I was able to meet gauge for the most part. My finished circumference of this whole sweater is 46 inches, which gives me 12 inches of positive ease. The goal or the suggested positive ease was 13 inches, so I think my gauge was just a little bit tighter than what was suggested in the pattern. But I really love the fit. It's super cozy and oversized. It's definitely long, you know, it kind of comes and covers some of my butt. The sleeves are long, and so it's just a perfect oversized layering piece. Normally, if this was like a regular sweater, less of an outerwear piece and more of an, regular sweater, I would not knit it that long. I would not make the sleeves that long. But for this zipper sweater, I really love that style of just being oversized and super cozy. I love the fabric. It is super soft. Now, I'm someone who likes mohair. I don't really find it too itchy, but this Tilia is definitely the softest mohair that I have felt. Absolutely no itchiness at all. It just feels very like buttery soft and fluffy, especially in combination with the Folklore Peruvian. I am really in love with the yarn combo. I thought the Folklore Peruvian was a really nice Highland wool, also very soft, very plump, and just makes like the squishiest fabric. And I really like how fast it knit up, the worsted weight wool plus the lace weight mohair on 5.5 millimeter needles knit up so quickly, way faster than what I'm used to. Now, normally I would not knit something this bulky for a full sweater, but again, with the outerwear vibe, the oversized vibe, I don't mind fabric this thick. And maybe I'm convinced now that I like this and would consider doing a sweater this thick, but normally I like my sweaters to be a little bit thinner just because they're a little bit more practical to wear in my opinion. I have been wearing this nonstop. The day that I finished it was the day before I went to Oslo for the weekend, and I wore this all over Oslo for like 3 straight days. There's really no pilling yet on the underarm or the sleeve, which is where I normally see pilling start on all of my sweaters. The only thing I will comment is that the mohair does kind of shed everywhere, not like dramatically, but things that I noticed when I was wearing my backpack or my purse, that like the friction would pull mohair out of like the shoulders, so I would find mohair like on my backpack from the friction. And there was definitely, throughout knitting this, there was a lot of mohair on the floor of my apartment that I noticed while like vacuuming or sweeping. Like most of the dust was black mohair, but all that aside, I would definitely knit with this yarn combo again. I would definitely continue to wear this yarn combo, and I really like the pattern too. It was very easy to follow. In terms of if this is beginner friendly, because I do get a lot of questions about the zipper sweater, if it's like a reasonable pattern for someone who's new to garment knitting, I would say if you've done a raglan, then you can do the zipper sweater if you're ready for the next step, because the whole knitting part is pretty straightforward. You have a long collar and you have then raglans. There are short rows involved, so if you're comfortable with short rows, you definitely can knit this. Is the hardest part the zipper? I wouldn't necessarily say it's hard, but it's definitely something different. It takes time and it takes attention to detail. So if you're ready to do that in a project, then I definitely think you're ready for a zipper sweater. Now, I did want to talk briefly about this pattern versus the zipper sweater man pattern because I have now knit both. I did purchase both patterns because I just wanted to see if there was much of a difference. And my conclusion is that there is not. Let me pull out my other zipper sweater. This is NYX. I knit this last year, 2 years ago? I don't remember. But I knit this a while ago in Knitting for Olive, heavy merino and soft silk mohair in the color dark moose. And I knit him the size small as well, which was the suggested size for his chest measurement. In general, the patterns are pretty much the same. The gauge is the same. The major differences are with the ribbing. The zipper sweater man uses 1x1 ribbing, and the zipper sweater original uses twisted rib. So obviously that's an easy swap that you can make without needing to buy the other pattern. The major differences are in the fit. So the zipper sweater man calls for 8 inches of positive ease, where the zipper sweater original calls for 13 inches of positive ease. So if you have one of those patterns and want to do the other one, just look at the ease, figure out what kind of ease you want. I think in general it's more common for patterns made for men to have less positive ease than maybe female focused patterns because of the fit and the slouchiness. But obviously you just pick what size ease you want and then pick your size that corresponds to, and I think there's pretty much no difference there in the pattern. The zipper sweater man also calls for much longer knitting of the body and much longer knitting of the sleeves. I think that just accounts for, the anatomy of most men. They have longer torsos and longer arms than females, so that pattern difference, again, is pretty easy to adjust without needing to purchase the other pattern. So those are the comparison between the two. I don't think you need to buy both. You can easily make both of these versions from one pattern if you need to. All right, let me grab my first work in progress, and I have to apologize because you guys have not seen any of this project, but there is so much progress on it. This is my Whitmoor Cardigan. It's a pattern by Amy Loudon, and if you've been following me this year, you will probably remember that I started knitting this back in the spring. I was really excited to knit this, and I had chosen a size medium for me, and I think I chose the wrong size, and then in combination, my gauge with this yarn after blocking was really big, so those two things combined made a cardigan that just was really big on me, and it was not the fit that I wanted. I did not really want an oversized fit with this cardigan. I wanted something more closer to the body, and I frogged it, sat on the yarn for a while, and then recently had the energy to cast it back on. In fact, this is one of the projects I packed with me on my trip. So I casted this on a couple weeks ago, and it was my only whip for a really long time, which is why there's so much progress on it. And this is what I have so far. You can see that the lace is done, the sleeves are separated, and the body is also done. I actually just finished casting off the body this morning. And yeah, let's talk about, as I pick a piece of hair out of it, let's talk about this pattern. The Whitmoor Cardigan is a circular yoke top-down lace cardigan. It is charted, and you start with the collar, you go straight into the lace pattern, and then you split for sleeves. You do knit the button band simultaneously on smaller DPNs, so you kind of have to manage that as you're knitting the body. Past the sleeves are just a stockinette section for the body. There is 1x1 ribbing at the bottom, and the cardigan has a couple different versions that you can do for lengths. You could do a shorter length or a longer length, and for the sleeves you can do a tapered sleeve or a bishop sleeve, which I think is similar to a balloon sleeve. I am doing the shorter length with tapered sleeves. So I just finished casting off for the body. Now I'm not going to talk too in depth about this pattern just because I know I have podcast episodes about them previously. So I'll link those below if you want, different perspectives from when I was knitting this a couple months ago. But I really like the lace pattern. I always find lace very addicting to knit as you're following a chart, because you just want to do the next row and then the next row and then the next row to see the pattern emerge in the fabric. So it's a very satisfying knit, mostly yarn overs and some decreases, and you have to do yarn overs and decreases on both sides of the fabric, so knit and purl, which I think makes it more exciting because there's something new in every row. The yarn that I'm using for this is Sewrella Yarn Classic DK in the color Townhouse. This is a really nice cream color with some blushy undertones. It is from their Autumn in New York collection, which is actually going to be opened for pre-order on the 27th of October, which should be right after I upload this video. So if you're interested in this yarn, it will be available for pre-order this weekend, so I will link that site below. I really like this yarn and this color. I have really enjoyed knitting with it. This is like a very comfortable yarn to knit with. I've been knitting the body on 4.5mm needles. The ribbing is on 3.5mm needles. And the button band I have been knitting on 3.25mm needles. Those are all sized up from the pattern suggested needle size. I just needed to size up to meet gauge. And yeah, I think it looks really good so far. Now I am knitting this with the frogged yarn that was from my first edition of this cardigan, and I was a lazy knitter and did not do any sort of, steaming or washing of my yarn after I frogged it. I just immediately caked it back up and started knitting with it. So you can definitely see in the stockinette body a lot of tensioning issues because of the kinky frogged yarn. I am hoping and assuming that most of that will block out. You can also see some striping here. So I have been alternating skeins for this whole project because it is a hand-dyed yarn, and I wanted to avoid any potential color blocking if there was some slight variation in the skeins. And I think one of my skeins is a lot darker than the other ones because you can really see here those stripes, and in combination with that, I think that really dark one was also a kinked up frogged ball, whereas the other skein that was in this section was a new untouched ball. So it really stands out. And again, I'm hoping it'll look a little better with blocking. I think I am a little disappointed that you can see these stripes because you're supposed to alternate skeins to avoid some visual discrepancies with the yarn colors, but I feel like you can still see it because they're so different. And I think if anything, the camera picks it up a little bit more than my actual eyes. So that's one thing I'm a little bit disappointed with, but we'll see how it looks at the end. And from far away, it kind of just looks like a nice tonal piece. I don't think you can see. Maybe you can. The camera makes it worse, I swear. But let me just try this on to show you guys how much better the fit is than before. Not that I'm expecting you guys to remember the fit before, but I'll just show you how I really like the fit now. And this is obviously unblocked, so it is going to be a little bit scrunched up compared to what it'll look like blocked, but yeah, very nice. I really like it. And beforehand, I think unblocked, it was still overlapping, it was pretty much kind of like this. There was a lot of overlapping fabric. Here, it's not even overlapping. I'm definitely going to have to pull on it a little bit to close it, but with blocking, I shouldn't have to pull on it. So it's going to be a perfect fit, in my opinion, for what I want. It's about neutral ease, 0 ease total. So I think it'll look really good. I just have to do the sleeves. It is really convenient that the button band's already done, so I don't even have to go do a button band after I do the sleeves. And the sleeves are all stockinette, so I'm pretty happy with this piece. I have modded this pattern slightly by adding short rows at the back because there are no short rows in this pattern, and I don't really like how circular yoke patterns sit without short rows because you get this really big dip at the back of your neck. So I didn't want to interrupt the lace pattern because it starts immediately after the collar, so I decided to add short rows at the right after the lace ended and before the sleeve split. So basically you finish the lace and then you're supposed to immediately split for sleeves and then do stockinette. So before I split for sleeves, I added in short rows to add about 1.5 inches of length to the back while not adding any length to the front. So I kind of did like a wedge that starts like here in the middle and kind of tapers out right to the underarm, and that was about like 10 rows of short row knitting, and I think that helped a lot. I can tell when I try it on that I don't really have a huge dip in the back of the neck. If I line up the front and the back pieces, like if I line up, let me show you. If I line everything up at the bottom hem, you can see here, I know it's upside down, but you can see how the front and the back are different heights, which is what I wanted. And if you didn't add any short rows to this pattern, these two would be lined up. So that's just an FYI for the pattern. I have seen some other people on the Ravelry project page who added short rows into the ribbed collar. So their ribbed collar is wider at the back than the front. So that's another option you can do. I'm pretty pleased with adding the short rows. I did do it before with that first version, so I pretty much knew what to do the second time around. I will link again the resources that I used for calculating the short rows in the description box. If you're also curious, I found some good videos and a couple good blog posts that sort of guided my direction with that. And yeah, that's pretty much all I can share about my Whitmoor cardigan. I'm really excited to almost be done with it. Really excited to block it because this is totally going to be one of those projects that just transforms with blocking. And I am looking forward to adding some cardigans to my wardrobe because I'm definitely lacking in cardigans and they're definitely really easy to style and fun to wear. Very practical piece. So stay tuned for the finishing of the Whitmoor cardigan. So I was working on that Whitmoor cardigan for the back half of my trip. I have since come home. I came home earlier this week and I was super excited to come home to all of my other yarn and my other knitting needles. I loved the efficiency of working one project at a time. Like, I'm still shocked at how fast I finished the zipper sweater. I'm shocked at how fast the body of that cardigan knit up, but something in me just wants to knit on other things simultaneously. So I was really excited to cast on some new projects. Now, I have been on a beanie kick and I don't know why. I used to only knit hats and it was my favorite project to knit for a very long time. And I feel like I lost that mojo, probably because I started a hat selling business. And so that was a lot of hats that I had to knit. And I have lots of beautiful skeins of yarn in my stash in beanie quantities, you know, single or double quantities of skeins. So I've been really wanting to cast on Petite Knit's weekend hat. So I did just that. So this is the beginnings of a weekend hat. I feel like there's not much to share about the pattern because it's pretty self-explanatory. It's a 1x1 ribbed hat. There's some double knitting to help with the folds. It's triple folded, which I think is the part that I love the most about the pattern. It's just super chunky on your forehead, which I love. And I feel like the shape of the crown is very nice. It's like kind of pointed, but kind of not. I like the way it looks more than the Oslo hat, so I'm curious to see if I like knitting it as much as I love knitting the Oslo hat, because the Oslo hat is all stockinette, which is very satisfying and very easy to knit, but this is all 1x1 rib, which I'm not a rib hater. I don't mind it, but it definitely is not as fun as stockinette. But let me talk about the yarn first. This is Night Bright Yarn Co.'s Bright DK. This was kindly gifted to me from the Under the Sea collection, and this is the color Starfish, which is just this beautiful variegated pink. There's some hot pinks, dark pinks, light pinks. I kind of like how it's like one pink. Like, I feel like you could call this a tonal, but there's definitely more variegation than like your classic tonal. And I really like how it's knitting up. There's a lot of texture and dimension in the color. It's a super nice yarn. I'm knitting this on 3.5mm needles, and I'm doing the adult medium size, which should fit my head. It doesn't look like it'll fit my head now, but I trust that the ribbing will stretch out. So yeah, I guess not too much to share on this besides showing you the beginnings of it, and I will let you know how it goes. Probably next episode I would probably have it finished and be able to try it on and give my review. With this beanie kick that I'm on, I have a lot of other beanies on my queue to knit. I really want to try knitting Tori Yu's Manhattan hats. She has a couple different patterns out there for different weights of yarn. I'll probably try a couple of them. Petite Knit Stockholm hat I want to try knitting as well. Sari Nordland's Robin beanie. So we'll see if I get to them all this winter. Maybe I'll do kind of like a beanie comparison video, because I've done Oslo hats, I've done a couple hats by Isolde Teague, like the Musselburgh and the Bothy hat, and a couple other beanie patterns. So I feel like maybe this is the replacement for my sock knitting obsession that I had earlier this year. I don't know what it is, but I do not want to knit a sock right now. You cannot force me to knit a sock. And I don't know why. It's kind of a shame because socks are really fun. I have a lot of nice sock yarn that I could knit up, but as of right now, I think I'm going to focus on beanies as kind of like my background projects to my main garment whips. All right, so I have one more whip to share with you guys. This is also a recent new cast on with some new yarn. And I am knitting the Lana Vest by Irene Lynn. I'm actually knitting this as part of a little mini informal knit along with Phoenicia from The Woolly Worker here on YouTube and Flaminia from Knitting Phlegm also here on YouTube. So we are knitting this together. We have a little chat going, so it's a lot of fun. And so far, this is what I have. So the Lana Vest is a all over textured cabled oversized v-neck vest. It is knit from the top down. You start with the back. There is some short row shaping to give the shoulder shape, and then you knit the back, and then you knit the front two panels in the v-neck shape, and then you connect everything in the round and continue down. It is written as well as charted. I am following the charts for the most part, and the yarn I'm using, I'm really excited to share because this is new to me yarn. This is originally Lovely Lana, which I thought was super funny that I am knitting the Lana Vest in Lana yarn. The two are totally unrelated, I think. So Lana is an Aran weight Indian Highland wool, 100% wool, non-superwash. This is the color Merlot, which is such a nice sort of wine red, purple, burgundy color. It matches my manicure, which might or might not be a coincidence. I started knitting this the day before I had a nail appointment, and this just inspired me. I was like, I need to get my nails in the same color. So this is a really squishy ball of yarn. It's 100 grams. You get 175 meters in this one ball. That's 191 yards. And yeah, originally Lovely sent this to me to try out, so it is gifted yarn. I've really enjoyed knitting with it so far. The Lana Vest suggests 5.5 millimeter needles to meet gauge. I did have to size down to 5 millimeter needles, and this is what I have so far. Really fun texture. I was a little bit worried that the dark color might not show the cables the best, but I don't know, it looks pretty good to me. It's definitely more subtle than if it was a white, but I think it looks really good. I really like the autumnal color. I feel like generally I'm not drawn towards the classic oranges and reds that are associated with autumn, but this Merlot color I feel like is definitely a color that I love and fits in the autumnal vibe. So I'm kind of giving myself a fake deadline to finish this by Thanksgiving in November, because I think it would be really cute to wear to Thanksgiving dinner with my family. This is a vest, so I feel like I could definitely finish this before then. We're like over a month away, so yeah, and I'm excited to be knitting this along with some other knitters. It's really fun to chat about our progress on the project and share the yarns that we're using, so really excited to see this knit up. Next we'll move into yarn acquisitions, and I have quite a lot to share with you guys. I'm going to be covering the yarn that I purchased in Oslo, as well as new yarn that was sent to me while I was away, so there is quite a high volume. I am going to separate the video chapters. The first will be the Oslo yarn, so if you have already seen that content in my yarn store Oslo video, you can skip ahead to the next chapter, which will begin with new yarn that I received here at home. So let's get into the Oslo yarn. So I briefly mentioned that I went to Oslo I don't remember, was it about a month ago? No, it was less than a month ago, but I went for a weekend, did a ton of yarn shopping. It was really fun. If you haven't seen that full video and want to learn about the different yarn stores that I visited, definitely check that out. And yeah, let's go over the yarn that I got. So the first up is this Gepard Garn Wild and Soft. I got this at Fruktfeast in Oslo. This is a 40% wild tussa silk and 60% merino wool yarn. This is a fingering weight ball. It's 50 grams. They're 240 meters in a ball. And this is the color Glacier, which is color number, 728, and it's a really nice light blue, and I got to pair with it this Gepard cashmere lace. This is in the color New Wild Sky. This is a 100% cashmere lace yarn. This is a 25-gram hank. It contains 350 meters of yarn, and I'm going to pair these two together for a T number 1. That is the plan by My Favorite Things Knitwear. These are the two suggested yarns in the pattern. I think it'll be a very interesting knit for me because I've never combined all of these fibers together, you know, wool, silk, and cashmere. And I really like the color combo. You can see they don't match perfectly, but I think it'll make a nice marl that will overall have a good effect in the finished project. I have been sharing prices as well of the yarns that I purchased while abroad, just to sort of give a comparison to what might be the prices elsewhere. I don't know, I think it's interesting with prices, especially in places like Norway, where some of the yarns that I purchased are Norwegian yarns. So I found that those were cheaper than if I had bought them outside of Norway. But Gepard, I haven't really seen for sale in America, like, ever. I'm sure there's some like Etsy sellers that sell it, but I've never really seen a full retailer. If you know of one, let me know in the comments, because yeah, haven't found one yet. But one of these balls in Norway was 125 Norwegian krona, which is about $11.47 US. And the cashmere lace was 240 Norwegian krona for this single hank, which is about $22 US. I also picked up this Hilsvåg Tiende yarn, which is a 100% Norwegian wool. This is a DK weight yarn. It is, I believe, 100 grams. Yeah, this is 100 grams, and you get 260 meters in this hank of yarn. And it feels really nice. This is the color dark brown. It's definitely more rustic. It feels really hardy. It looks like it's a 2-ply, and it has a bit of texture to it. And I really like this. I picked up 2 skeins of this, and this was 52 krona, which was about $14 US. I also picked up this Rauma Garn Inca, which is a 100% alpaca yarn. I believe this is lace weight or fingering weight. Oh, it's not lace weight. Definitely more of a fingering or a sport. This is 50 grams, 175 meters. The color is, I don't know what this is in English, but it's some form of gray. It has a nice sort of variation within the color, and this was 80 krona, which is about $7.34 US. I also got to pick up some Peer Gynt when I was in Oslo, specifically at Garntopia, which is a really nice store to visit. And Peer Gynt was the yarn that I feel like I got the best value for. I'll start with the prices, even though I've been ending on the other ones with the price, but each of these balls of Peer Gynt was 55 krona, which is about $5 US. I've never seen a price that low for Peer Gynt at any retailer here in the States, or even retailers in Europe. You know, obviously when you add in shipping and stuff, it makes the price a lot higher. So I got this color Cocoa Nibs, which is one of the new petite knit colors. Oh, by the way, if you don't know, Peer Gynt is by Sandnes Garn. I feel like I talk about it a lot, which is why I forgot to mention it, but Sandnes Garn is a Norwegian yarn company. I love most of their yarns and have used most of the, popular yarns by them, and I'm loving to try more of them. I've knit with Peer Gynt once before in a hat, and I really want to try it in a garment, so I got a sweater quantity in Cocoa Nibs. And then I also got a few balls of the natural tweed color, which is this cream color with brown and black tweed flecks. I got 3 balls, which is enough to make another hat, and I really like this tweed color. Also at Garntopia, I picked up some Knitting for Olive merino, which I have never knit with before, which is surprising because I've knit with most other Knitting for Olive yarns, but they're merino. I don't know, I just haven't knit with it yet, so I'm super excited to try it. This is the color Wild Berries, which is this really nice sort of muted pink. I think it'll look really good on me. I'm excited to knit with more pinks as I go forward. And this was 99 krona, which is about $9 US. So not a huge discount on the Knitting for Olive merino. I think that's pretty equitable to other retailers that I can buy, like here in the States, or, you know, maybe similar price, but then you just add shipping onto that. So this is the merino. I do have a project plan for that, which I will share in a little bit, and you'll see why. And then the last yarn that I got in Oslo was from Pickles. I went to the Pickles store. It was really cute. Pickles is a Norwegian yarn brand. They have a storefront in the Granerloka area of the city. And I picked up this Bliss. This is a 40% baby alpaca, 40% wool, 20% mohair blend. It's a single ply. It is super soft. This is the color 1000, and I think the name of the color is Marble. And I got a few balls of these, enough for an accessory. I think it would make a really nice scarf just because of how soft it is. And I'm really excited to try this new to me yarn brand. One ball of this was 102 krona, which comes out to about $9.30 US. Now in Norway, the value-added tax rate is 25%, so all of the prices I just shared included the 25% tax rate. I did send in forms to get refunded on those taxes just because I'm not a resident of Norway. I'm eligible for those. I'm still waiting to see those refunds, and I'm expecting about 12% back on all of those purchases, so I think in general, pretty good deal on those yarns once I factor in the tax refunds that hopefully will show up on my card soon. But I had a really good time in Oslo. If you are a yarn lover, definitely recommend Oslo if you get a chance to go. They had so many yarn stores. I did not get to visit them all, and I wish I did, but really good selection, really friendly people at the yarn stores, and overall it was just a really good time. Whew, this episode is very yarn heavy, so I hope you like looking at new yarn. So now we'll go over all the yarn that I got sent home while I was away. We'll start with the yarn that I purchased. I think that's a good place to start. So my Sewrella yarn Taylor Swift collection pre-order came in. Very excited. So let me grab what I got. I feel like these colors look so good together, even though I did not buy them to go together. But here we are. So where do I start? I'll start with this one. This is a cute one. So I got the color Enchanted in Classic Sport. This is a 100% superwash merino, sport weight. It's 100 gram hanks and 328 yards in this one hank. This Enchanted color is really pretty. It's just all these sort of blushy pinks and purples. I feel like most of the colors are similar. Like there's not a whole lot of variation, except maybe right here you can see sort of like a tan orangey stripe, but the rest kind of looks like a tonal sort of purpley pink. But I got a single skein of this in sport weight because I wanted it, like I mentioned before, to use Manhattan Hat Light, which is a sport weight pattern. I am pretty sure, based on the pattern description, that you can get the double folded brim with one skein of sport weight yarn, because I feel like the struggle with beanies is that I really like all the double and triple folded brims, but you can never get that with one skein of DK or one skein of fingering weight, unless you do like a muscle burra, which takes a really long time to knit. If you like hold fingering weight double or just a single DK weight, one skein is not enough to get a double folded or triple folded brim. But when I saw that Tori's pattern with sport weight yarn can get that in an adult size hat, I was like, I'm sold. I gotta try it. So that'll be cast on at some point. Like I said, I'm in my hat era, my beanie era, so I'm pretty sure this will get cast on pretty quickly, and I can't wait to see how it knits up. I also got a skein of 1989 in Nylon sock. This color has fascinated me ever since Sewrella came out with it a few years ago, and I don't know why. It's highly variegated, and I'm not a highly variegated person unless it's in socks, so I would definitely need to make a pair of socks out of this. This nylon sock is 80/20. It's a 2-ply. You get 400 yards in this skein. I just love all of those colors. That purple, those pinks, the red in there looks really good. And I've seen some projects of this knit up, and I just love all of the different colors. It kind of makes those micro stripes, I think. So when I get my sock mojo back, I'll cast these on. Because it's so variegated, I'll probably just do a vanilla sock to really let the yarn shine. But really happy with this skein of yarn. I also got the color red. This is just a really pretty tonal red with a lot of depth to it. This is the classic sock base. This is a 100% superwash wool. There's no nylon in it. It's the same 2-ply yardage as the nylon sock, so there's 400 yards in this hank. Now I got enough of this to make a shawl, which is why I didn't get the nylon, because I didn't think it needed the nylon. And I really want to make Andrea Mowry's blush shawl. Is that the name of it? I can't remember the name. Hold on. Boho Blush. Okay, I was halfway there. But I really want to make Andrea Mowry's boho blush shawl. It just looks like a nice shawl sort of scarf wrap to make. I'm not a huge shawl wearer, but if a shawl can be worn like a scarf, then I can totally see myself wearing it. I have a camel coat that I wear for most of the winter, and I feel like this red would look really good with it. And I also feel like this red would be really good for Christmas time. I can totally see myself wearing a shawl in sort of like a holiday outfit setting. Like if I had a black dress or maybe a black skirt, I could throw this shawl over top and it would look very holiday-esque and would fit the vibes really well, which is why I like this red color. So I think it has dual purpose, you know, both for the holidays and not for the holidays. I don't know when I'll cast this on, but obviously if I want it for Christmas, I'm gonna have to start it kind of soon because it's a fingering weight shawl. So we'll see when this gets casted on, probably soon. Yeah, this is red. And the last yarn that I got on that pre-order was Folklore. This is the classic DK base, 100% superwash wool. This is 230 yards per 100 grams. And Folklore is just this really nice purpley gray. It definitely, if you look at it, you're like, oh, that's purple, but it's definitely a super muted purple, a very washed out purple where you could maybe call it a gray. This is a tonal. I really like how it kind of looks just like the Folklore cover. Even though the Folklore cover is all gray tones, not really super purple, I feel like this captures the concept of the cover art very well, especially because the cover art has those light and dark areas of the photo. You know, it's very variegated, and this yarn has that same sort of variegation. And I got a sweater quantity of this. I can totally see myself wearing this in a sweater. I'm trying to decide what to knit with it. Not that I need to decide soon, but lately I've been really crushing on Sari Nordland's Colette pullover pattern that was recently released. It is this really boxy, oversized sweater with cables that are separated with eyelet rows, and I really like it. And I'm trying to decide if this yarn would be a good pick for that sweater. The only hesitation I have is that this is a tonal, and I don't want the tonality to sort of take away from the cables because that is a textural knit. So I'm wondering if this is maybe too tonal and if I want to go for something more solid to really let that cable pattern shine. So undetermined my decision with that pattern, but it's definitely on my list to knit. And I'm sure if I don't knit that sweater with this yarn, I'll definitely find a great project at some point to use with Folklore. And I also got some wool wash because I really like Sewrella's wool washes. They just smell really good. They're really scented, which I like scents. And this is the scent Lover. And I don't remember what the actual description of the scent was. I think it might be sort of strawberry jammy. I think that's what they wrote in the Instagram post about it. But it's very sweet, kind of candy-like, but not like a sugary candy, like a fruity candy, which would make sense with the strawberry smell. It definitely has berry undertones, but there's definitely something like deep as well, like a low note. It smells good. Here, take a whiff. It's good, right? I like it and I'm excited to use it. So this was my Taylor Swift yarn haul. Super pretty. You can tell I'm leaning more into those pinks. Like I said, I feel like lately I've been into blues and I'm now shifting into pinks. Pinks and beanies. That's what you can expect from Knits in the near future. Now I will share some yarn that was very kindly gifted to me. And I mentioned before, the first was by Originally Lovely Yarn. This was their Lana yarn. It's an Aran weight wool. I talked about it with my Lana Vest, and I am really pleasantly surprised with this yarn. I don't knit with Aran weight yarns very often, and because of that, I was like, oh, I don't really know if I'll like it that much, and especially because it's 2-ply. I feel like lately I've been more into yarns with more than 2 plies just because I like the roundness. I like the stitch definition a little bit better, but Lana has been a surprise hit with me, and I just pulled out my swatch in stockinette stitch to show you all. It is soft, but it also feels woolly. Like, I know a lot of knitters will say, oh, it's so soft, it's so soft. And yes, softness is definitely a desirable trait, but I don't think that softness is the best trait in every single yarn, especially because there are some really soft yarns out there that just don't hold up very well. But this, in addition to being soft, it feels very sturdy. It definitely has that like woolly feel, like a little bit of toothiness to the touch, but nothing that would irritate the skin. It just feels very like sturdy and stable. I really like how the stitches look in the stockinette. This was on 5.5mm needles, and I like the drape. You can see it drapes really nicely. It folds really nicely. So I am very impressed with the Lana yarn. I was also gifted by them their Pura yarn, which is a different fiber. This is 100% merino wool, non-superwash. This is a DK weight, so you get 125 meters in this 50-gram ball. I got the color Dusk, which is this really nice heathered light pink. You can see up close all of the different colors in that heathered color. Now, all of Pura's colors are not heathered. I think this is one of the few that are. So I just wanted something with a little bit of dimension, but I kind of like how their other colors are just a more solid unicolor. I have not knit anything with this yet, not even a swatch, so I can't really say for how it knits, but it looks like it has that similar sort of hand feel to the Lana. It's definitely softer, but it still has that woolly feel that I like. It has a lot of plies. I don't know how many plies, but you can see it's very like high spin. It looks like it'll have good stitch definition. So I'm very curious to see how this will knit up. I think a good merino DK weight yarn would be a workhorse in any knitter's yarn collection because you can use it in so many different applications. So I am hoping that I like this yarn because I feel like it would be a good option. I feel like non-superwash merinos are hard to find. So yeah, these were the 2 Originally Lovely yarns that were sent to me. And I was also sent some yarn from Red Stag Fibre Company. They are based in Texas here in the US. They kindly offered to send me some yarn. I did not get to pick what they sent me, which I feel like is exciting because whatever they pick, it's like a surprise opening the package. So Red Stag Fibre Company kindly sent these 3 skeins of their Dashes sock base, which is a interesting base I've never worked with before. So this is 70% superwash merino, 20% yak, and 10% nylon. It is a 4-ply yarn. It has 437 yards in this 100-gram hank, and I really like the colors that they sent. When I opened up the package, they were laid out together like this, and I was like, wow. These neutrals look really good. I feel like with hand-dyed yarns, I don't go for neutrals, and I was like, maybe I should go for neutrals more often because they just look so stunning, especially together. I was already thinking like, ooh, what can I make with these 3 skeins together? Because this would be a really cute like striped t-shirt or a striped sweater or some sort of shawl. So this color is Farage. And all of their colors are inspired by European travels, which is pretty cool. And oh, they also sent me this cute little stag charm stitch marker. Really cute. This is the color Royal Ballet. This is like a nice brown color, like a lighter brown. And then this is the color Stone Gate, which is a pretty true black, maybe a very, very dark charcoal color, but really nice. I'm already thinking of all the projects I could make with these, you know, again, tempted to hold them all together, but I think separately these can make some really nice accessories, especially as gift season is approaching. So thank you, Red Stag Fibre, for these yarns. And we'll move on to the last thing that was sent to me, and I have 2 books to share. So these were both sent to me by Penguin Publishing. So thank you so much, Heather, for sending these my way. I'll start with this book over here. This is Knitivation Stitch Dictionary by Andrea Rangel. So this one was just released, and it is a colorwork stitch dictionary. So it includes over 150 colorwork motifs to expand your knitting arsenal. It has charts for all of them and pictures, and it has absolutely everything. Like, think of an image, there's probably a chart in here for it. So I'll just show a couple of the pages here. I mean, that's super cute. I'm not a huge colorwork person, but I was really excited to receive this book because I feel like colorwork could come in handy if you want to get into children's knitting or gift knitting. You know, you can just pick something that someone may like and put it on like a pair of mittens or a beanie, and boom, you have a perfect gift. What's cool about this book is, in addition to all of these charts, is that at the back they have patterns that show you and teach you how to apply the motifs to those patterns. So for example, they do have in the back here a pattern for a yoked sweater, and it tells you how you can just apply different charts to the yoke. So you can basically pick any motif in the book and then make a sweater out of it. Same thing with hats or mittens. It is all in here. So this is a really nice hardback book. I am going to be doing a giveaway for both of these books that I'm sharing. So stay tuned to the end of the next book to hear how to enter. All right, the next book, I've been kind of teasing it, and that is the Knitting for Olive book in English that was just recently released. And I was so excited when I was told this was being sent to me because I've been wanting this book since I saw it in Danish, and it is a thick book. This is a soft cover book that contains 20 patterns by Knitting for Olive. There is a lot in here, including at the beginning they have like the story of Knitting for Olive that I started reading, which is really interesting. And then in the back they have all of the iconic Knitting for Olive patterns that many people know and a lot of people have knit, but this is the first time they're releasing the book in English. So I'll just show some of the patterns that are in here. There is the Barbro blouse, the puff tee, the Avaya sweater, the Darling wrap, the Nature lace sweater, which is the one featured on the cover, the Carl Johan sweater, and there are lots of accessories in here too, or at least some. But like there's a slip over here, Olive's vest, the December hat, and the Olive scarf. So all of these patterns, as you can imagine, are knit with Knitting for Olive yarns. So they're all here in this book. Now, I mentioned before I had knitting plans for my Knitting for Olive merino, and those knitting plans come from this book. So I have been eyeing the Barbro blouse for the longest time, and I'm really happy that I have it now. I would love to knit it. It's not going to be cast on super soon, but definitely maybe early next year, or maybe for the spring. I'm trying to pull up the cover picture of it again. But it's such a stunning knit. It's something different. You know, this is not something similar to anything I've knit before. I think the all over lace will look really stunning and also be really engaging to knit. So I think with the Wild Berries merino, that'll be a really fun knit for me in the future. Now, Penguin Publishing was kind enough to sponsor a giveaway for both of these books that I'll be hosting. So if you want to enter the giveaway, it is open to Canada and US residents only, and they are providing the books. Comment below what you would knit from either of these books. It can be general because I know I didn't show too many specifics, but if you just say like, oh, a colorwork hat or one of the Knitting for Olive patterns, I will then draw the winner before my next podcast, which I will film in 2 weeks, and I will announce the winner in my next podcast. I will video record the name, so just an FYI with all giveaways. You've probably heard this before from other creators. I will not contact you. I will not comment on your comment if you have won, so please be wary of bots or false impersonators. The only way you will know you have won the giveaway is if I say your name on the next podcast, which will be episode 23. So I will pick 2 winners. One winner will win the Knitivation book, and one winner will win the Knitting for Olive book. So I'm really excited to host that giveaway. And again, thank you, Penguin, for gifting these books and sponsoring the giveaway as well. Also, huge thank you once again to all the other brands that have sent me things. I'm really grateful and excited to try out all of the gifted yarn. And with that, we have reached the end of today's episode. Thank you so much for joining me today. If you want to subscribe and see more content from me, I would really appreciate it. And if you would give this video a like, that helps me out a lot. Thank you guys so much for watching. I'll see you guys in the next one. Bye.